Okay, so one of the topics that keeps coming up in different sugyas, and therefore we have to tackle it, is the question of R tzitzis Chovat Gavra, Chovat Mana, Chovat Gavra, Chovat Tallit, meaning, well, we'll see what it means, but simply speaking, though we'll have to qualify this, does the obligation devolve on the person, or does it devolve on the beged, on the clothing? So the Gemara explicitly speaks about this in two places. Maybe we'll do this backwards, because really the main sugya is the one on Mem Bet, and the one on Mem Aleph is a little bit secondary to that. So let's start with the Gemara on Mem Bet. And we saw that this affected the way we understood and that's why we ended up cutting off the last few minutes of Beged of Kashrut Laila, right? That a lot of that night-day might hang on this sugya, but until you've done this sugya, you can't really understand it. So there's going to be a bit of conversation between sugyas. So the main sugya is this sugya on Mem Bet Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says, let's take it. You want to take it, Daniel? Rav Nachman.
You want it on Mem Bet?
Well, let's start with the one on Mem Bet. Yeah, that's really the main sugya. Right, Rav Nachman Ashkechei.
So he attached strings.
So first, Rav Nachman found Rav Ada bar Hava, and what he was doing was he was putting tzitzis on his clothes.
And he made a bracha on it.
What bracha?
The bracha was
lasot tzitzit, meaning on the creation of the chefta shel tzitzit. Right?
Yilema?
So Amar Lei. He said to my tzitzit shomani hachi maza. Right? He's made fun of him. What the heck did I just hear?
Amar Rav. Tzitzis ain't tzricha bracha. Tzitzis don't need a bracha. Meaning, Rashi says that when you're making them.
Correct. Meaning vishalat siyah, because that's the context. You don't have to make a bracha when you make tzitzis. You make a bracha when you
put them on.
wear tzitzis.
Right. When he died.
When Rav Huna died.
Okay. Al Rav Chista le Mirma the Rav Adarav.
Right. So Rav Chista got up. Right. He got up, and he wanted to pose a contradiction between two positions of Rav. Right. The Rav Adarav, one position of Rav on the other.
Umi Amar Rav. Tzitzis ain't tzricha bracha. Does any bracha?
No. Does Rav really hold that tzitzis don't need a bracha, meaning in the creation? Now, conceptually, let's try to understand this conceptually. What is the assumption? Why would one think that you do need a bracha on the creation of tzitzit, and why would you think you don't need a bracha on the creation of tzitzit?
Because it says lasot. The pasuk says lasot.
Well, let's push it. So that's the pasuk. But what is it? What's the conceptual model that's being set up?
Well, when you're making the tzitzit, that's when you complete the actual.
Well, so there's different reasons why you might think it, right? One is to say, as we'll see, the Gemara is going to say, is the mitzvah to wear tzitzit or is the mitzvah to have tzitzit? The alternative is to say, no, even if you think the mitzvah is to wear tzitzit, if there's also a value in the creation of this object, then you make a bracha on it. I mean, you could admit that the main mitzvah is to wear it and still think that it's halachically significant to create it, and therefore you make a bracha there, perhaps, as well. And that might be because the pasuk says vasulam tzitzit. We've talked about this possibility before, that we talked about this in Gardumin, right? That perhaps the reason that by Gardumin we say that tzitzis is kasher if you created it big in a proper size and then some of it is cut, is because since there's a value to creating it, it takes on a chalos, it takes on a status when it's created, and therefore that status might continue even if it's not the right size anymore. So, but the assumption, therefore, of saying a bracha on it at least says that there is a status to the object of tzitzit, and not only is it valuable when you wear it. So the Gemara says, okay, if that's the case, if conceptually speaking, there's a status to making it, so then, Daniel, what other things might be true in addition to the bracha? How else would you know that maybe there's a status to the creation of the object itself? What else?
You'd have to make it on every form or garment.
Well, that's what we're going to get to. That's clay kufsa. But more generically speaking, we've seen this. That once you talk about the object itself having a status, that means there might be standards in terms of how you make it. Lishma, remember we talked about, right? So here the Gemara introduces one of them, which is, another nafka mina might be, who can make tzitzis? Right? Does it matter? I mean, if you think that all that matters is wearing it, so maybe it doesn't matter who makes it. But if suddenly we see limitations,
it would be like the people who are obligated in it, right?
Exactly. So therefore, the Gemara says, "Daber el Zomarav minayin l'tzitzit bovei kochavim sheipsula." How do you know that a non-Jew who makes tzitzit it's invalid? Now, what does that indicate? Right? What's the Gemara conceptually saying? If a non-Jew can't make it, that means that the creation of the tzitzit is halachically significant, and that's why we care who makes the tzitzit. Now, we have to get into this sugya. What's the obvious question you'll have to ask? When it says that a non-Jew can't make it, that could be a stand-in for one of two things. That could either be a stand-in for non-Jews, i.e. people who are not chayav in mitzvot, or it could be a stand-in for
People who are not chayav in
tzitzit, nafkamina being
women.
Women, thank you. And that's why Tosfos says, that's why Tosfos here asks the question, can women make tzitzit? This is the sugya, right? This is the sugya, is can women make it? But the conceptual question is when the Gemara says, okay, there's clearly some value to creating the chefta shel tzitzit. That's why there's a limitation on non-Jews making it. What is that limitation? What is the category? Is it barei chiyuv in tzitzit, or is it people who are chayav in mitzvot in general? So the Gemara says, okay, Shneimar daber b'nei Yisrael v'asu lehem tzitzit. B'nei Yisrael ya'asu. Jews have to make them. V'lo avnei kochavim ya'asu. And then he says, Vaha my rumya. Why is this a question? Right? The Gemara says, I don't understand. You just said there's a contradiction. Why is there a contradiction? Statement 1, don't make a bracha when you make tzitzit. Statement 2, non-Jews can't make tzitzit. Why is that a contradiction? Right? The Gemara says, I don't understand. What is the tension here? So you tell me already, conceptually, what does the answer have to be? Before we get to the Gemara's actual answer, but conceptually speaking, what's the Gemara's question? It's, I don't understand. You could say that it's not a mitzvah and a Jew needs to do it. And so why is it a problem? So what's the Gemara's answer going to have to assume? Why are these connected? As I just said, because maybe if you think the creation of the object is a mitzvah, so that's why a non-Jew can't do it. That's why there's a standard, and that's why it's connected to bracha. Because if there's a mitzvah to create it, that means there's a status that the process itself is important, the creation of the object is important, and maybe therefore, if you think a goy can make it, you don't need a bracha. And if a goy can't make it, you do need a bracha, and that's why they should be conceptually linked. That's what Gemara says. So my room, Yom Rav Yosef, Ksav Rav Chisda, because Rav Chisda held they call mitzvah shekshera b'ovei kochavim b'Yisrael ein tzarich levarech. Rav Chisda thought that these are always equivalent. If a non-Jew can make it, there is no bracha. If a non-Jew can't make it, there is a bracha. Right? Ein tzarich levarech, chametz psula b'ovei kochavim b'Yisrael tzarich levarech. So at this stage in the Gemara, Rav Chisda thinks that it's oza. Anything that needs a Jew, what does that prove? That the process of the creation of the object is halachically significant, and therefore what does it always need? A bracha. And therefore it's both or neither. Either a Jew has to do it and he has to make a bracha, or not. Right? At this stage, the Gemara assumes that they are the same. Now, can you challenge it?
Yes.
How would you challenge it?
Because, it could just be...
But this Gemara is a very beautiful conceptual Gemara, right? Meaning each stage of the Gemara you see the way the Gemara is thinking. So what would be the challenge, right? Conceptually speaking, right? Why would you reject the equation of bracha to can a non-Jew make it? Meaning, how could you justify saying a non-Jew can't make it but you still don't have a bracha? Conceptually.
Non-Jew.
Maybe
Right, at this point in the Gemara quotes Rav Chisda, who says bracha is tied to whether you need a Jew to make it. But how could you say that I could have a case in which you don't have a bracha and nevertheless a Jew has to make it? What would you?
You can have a case where it has to be lishma, but you still don't make a bracha on that.
Meaning, You could say that what? It's not a...
The act itself is not like the mitzvah. I guess the mitzvah is putting it on, but you still need the proper intent when doing it.
Right, meaning, or if we put it slightly differently, I would say, you can... The Havamina, or Chiz's position, is that the only type of process that has halachic requirements is a mitzvah. So bracha, you can have other requirements. No bracha, no requirements. But you could easily say, no, you can have a process which is not which is halachically significant and therefore has halachic standards, but it's not a mitzvah. I mean, those aren't necessarily the same, right? You can have something which is not a mitzvah, but still halachically significant, still has standards. Like Lishma, like a Jew needs to do it, and therefore they're not connected. So that's what the Gemara...
Like building a sukkah?
So that's what the Gemara says. Uklalahu. What does uklalahu mean?
Curse.
No, that's with a kuf. Right, look at the Gemara. Read it. Uklalahu. Question mark, exclamation point. What's that called again? A tarot bang, right? Interrobang, there we go. Question mark followed by exclamation point is actually yes, an interrobang. Interrobang. I was like trying to remember what that was. Yes, an interrobang, right? Right, because it's a question followed by a bang. I guess that's the logic there, right? Interrobang. So uklalahu is an interrobang, right? Really? Is that a rule? Right? I mean, really? And again, you can hear the Gemara asking. Because, again, I want you to play through, this Gemara is beautiful conceptually, even before you get to the Chovat Gavra, Chovat Mana. The Gemara is saying, Rav Chisda's position is, if it's a mitzvah, then it can have halachic standards. It's not a mitzvah, it can't have halachic standards. And therefore, if a goy can't make it, you have to make a bracha. If a goy can make it, no bracha. It's oza. And the Gemara said, really? Uklalahu? Is that a rule? You can't imagine a case in which it's not a mitzvah to the point where you need a bracha, and yet you need halachic standards in terms of creating it? Right? That the process matters? Right? You can't imagine that this divides? Let me show you cases. So the Gemara says here, Hare Mila, right? In both directions, by the way. Right? In both directions. Right? You could have something that requires a bracha, but can have a guy do it because it's a mitzvah, but the mitzvah is result-oriented, right? Think about it.
That still wouldn't be a bracha.
Let's play it out, right? Meaning, how would it go in both directions? Right? How could you have something that needs a bracha, but a guy can do it? So that would be if it's result-oriented, meaning the mitzvah is to bring about a certain result, and therefore you need a bracha because it's a mitzvah, but you don't need a Jew to do it because the process is less important than the end result. And the opposite is also true. You could have something where you don't need a bracha because it's not a mitzvah per se, but the process is halachically important, and therefore requires a Jew, requires lishma. It could go in either direction. So first the Gemara gives you the case of a bracha where a guy can do it. Right? A bracha where a guy can do it. And that is Hare Mila, Bris Mila, Diksheira B'Ovei Kohavim.
What?
Ditanya, because the Brayza says, Ir she'ein ba Rofei Yisrael v'yeshra Rofei Armai. If you have no Jewish doctor, you only have a non-Jewish doctor. Again, I want to read this Gemara very carefully because conceptually this Gemara is beautiful. If you have a city which has a Jewish doctor, no Jewish doctor, only has a non-Jewish doctor, Virofe Kuti, Yimol Armai, Val Yimol Kuti. If you have a choice between a Kuti and an actual non-Jew, right? A Kuti were these, people who converted and under questionable conversions, but continued to worship Avodah Zarah. Okay. The Gemara has a category called Kuti. Right? Kuti is basically, there were people that in the time of Sancheriv, right? So we know Sancheriv?
Sure.
That's a no. So Sancheriv, when he conquered the northern territories, he kicked out the 10 tribes. Right? Sennacherib in English. Sancheriv. And what did he do? He moved out the 10 tribes, and what did he do? What was the policy of Assyria? Okay, wait. Who is Sancheriv? Sancheriv is the king of Assyria.
where they let Jews practice. But
One second. No, that's much later. He's the king of Assyria. Assyria has a global empire.
yes.
Right? They view themselves as the king of the world. Right? We have, last year at the British Museum, maybe you remember this. When I went to England, I went to the British Museum. They had an exhibit called "I Am Ashurbanipal, King of the World." Right? It was an exhibit of Assyria. So Sancheriv is the king of Assyria, and what does he do? So his policy, Daniel, is what? Is he going to make sure there's no rebellion?
Did he get rid of all the important people?
No, so that's Bavel's svara, right? How does Assyria do it? They move people. They take populations and they move them. So this way they don't know the territory, they have no commitment to the land, they have no reason to rebel. So that's why he takes the 10 tribes and he throws them into other lands. But what does he do? Now he has an empty country, so what does he do?
Bring in his own people.
He moves other people in. Right? He moves other people in now. He tries to do this in Yehuda, in Yerushalayim, and it doesn't work. Because he destroys Yehuda, reaches Yerushalayim, and then who's the king in Yerushalayim and davens and ends up having a miracle? Chizkiyahu. Of course is right. Chizkiyahu is a superhero in Tanakh. Chizkiyahu, the story is so important that it gets told 3 times. In Malachim, in Yeshayahu, and in Divrei Hayamim. 3 times, and it takes 5 prakim.
Doesn't Divrei Hayamim though kind of repeat mostly?
Correct, but this story is almost doubled or tripled in size in Divrei Hayamim. It's so long. It's many, many prakim. That's how much we like Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu is like the man. It's not just, by the way, Tanakh that loves him. Let's see if you remember from last year. Who wrote a poem about the failed invasion of Yerushalayim?
Mark Twain.
No. Lord Byron. Lord Byron, the Romantic, wrote a poem, a very, very famous poem, among those who read Romantic poetry. But Lord Byron wrote it actually is a very, very famous poem. It is a poem that's so famous that it has been parodied by other poets. Like Ogden Nash wrote a parody of Lord Byron's poem on Sancheriv, right? It's a poem called "The Destruction of Sennacherib" by Lord Byron, right? No, you've never heard this?
No. I mean, I've heard of Lord Byron.
The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold, and the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea. No? Yeah, I mentioned it last year. Anyways.
They don't teach us these things in high school.
Great stuff. Anyways, not the point. I mean, partially the point, but not fully the point. So, when Sancheriv did this, he moved people into Israel. Now, what happened? Those people, they were idol worshippers. So what happened when they worshipped idols? God sent lions to attack them. And at some point, they were like, oy vey, what's going on? So they decided, we must be being attacked by lions because the local god is angry at us because we are worshiping a foreign god. So they learn how to be Jewish and they convert. But this conversion is a bit strange because...
That's hilarious. Convert to Judaism because...
They're being attacked by lions.
No, because you're not worshiping the local...
Whoa, so this is the question. No, so this is the question. Good. So this is...
It's hilarious.
Yes. So this is the question in Tanakh. Is there conversion? Well, so in Chazal, they now have machlokes. Who are these kutim? They're clearly gerim. But the question is, are they halachic gerim?
What is that?
Good. So later on, when we meet the kutim, we discover that they're still worshiping Har Gerizim. Right? They're still worshiping the mountains. They're worshiping whatever. The machlokes that therefore ensues in Chazal is, are they good converts who then... I mean, was it that originally they were sincere and then they reverted to idolatry, but now they're Jews because they actually converted? Or, which is what we called gerei emet.
Their motive was always wrong.
So this is the machlokes in the Gemara. Motive doesn't actually matter. Lahalacha, it doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter.
It shows why they're converted.
It doesn't matter.
So how could they have ever had good intentions?
It doesn't matter. You don't need good intentions. You need commitment. Lahalacha. We don't like taking people with bad commitment. But lahalacha, if you convert, with the intention to keep the mitzvot, motivation doesn't invalidate it. Meaning, if you mean to keep the mitzvot, but you just do it for the wrong reasons, you're still converted.
But they can't be meaning to make the mitzvah if the reason.
That's not true. If they're afraid they're going to be eaten by lions and they're willing to keep the mitzvot, they would be.
They're meaning to keep the mitzvah.
It's just because of lions.
Yeah.
Is okay, but if you're
I always thought this concept though that you're not supposed to.
You're not. No, you shouldn't accept them. But if they converted, would it work? Right? Would it work?
Are they able to convert without? Like, do they have to convert through a rabbi? Or
So presumably, right? So this is the whole machlokes of the Gemara. Is what happened? Right? They're trying to work backwards because by the time they know the kutim are idol worshippers. So the question is, are they Jews, right? Who then went off the derech, reverted to their old ways, or were they never really committed? Right? They were always worshiping. So the Gemara calls it the machlokes of whether kutim gerei emet or gerei arayot. Right? Were they just converting because of lions, or did the lions get them to real commitment? Right? That's the machlokes in the Gemara. But there's this tense relationship with the kutim.
Well, did the lion stop?
Yes.
So then it must have been emet.
Well, not necessarily. It could just be that God said, okay, well now they're whatever, so that's enough. Again, it's a very complicated one of those things we're trying to work backwards in Tanakh, in Chazal. But the point is, the Gemara says, if I have a choice between a straight-out non-Jew, being the doctor who's going to give the bris milah, that's where we got into this, or a kuti, who's this gerei emet, gerei arayot, machlokes, etc. Eventually we decide that they're gerei arayot.
We do.
Yeah, that's the conclusion eventually in Chazal. So, Rabbi Meir says, Yimol armoy val yimol kuti. I'd rather have a guy, a straight-up guy, be the moel, and not a kuti. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says no, kuti velo armoy. I'd rather have a kuti than a straight-up non-Jew. Uvi Yisrael, so the Gemara says, so point one.
Why is a kuti, worst case scenario, they're like a non-Jew, best case scenario, they're Jew? Why?
So we have this, because we have this complicated relationship with kutim, which is a straight non-Jew. It's not, if you just get a doctor in the hospital to give a bris, no one's going to say, oh, he's giving a bris, that must mean he's a Jew. They'll just say he's a doctor. But if you have a kuti doing it, you'll say, is he doing it because he's a doctor? Is he doing it because he's a Jew? Right? It's always these borderline cases where we get more concerned. But I don't want to get into this with kutim. I really... It's a complicated thing. You can see every time it comes up, you see this long Tosos, right? Va'al yimol kuti, right? 2/3 of the page is just Tosos trying to work this out again, right? Tosos every time it comes up tries to work this out. So he says point one, and the Gemara is pretty explicit. Can a guy do a bris milah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you make a bracha by bris milah? If a Jew does it?
Yeah.
Also, yes, that's the next line. Yisrael tzarich levarech. The Amar Mar Hamal, one who gives a bris milah, Omer Baruch Asher Kedisham Zadav Zivanu Al Hamilah.
No, but
Have you ever been to a bris?
It's not a contradiction. Meaning the best.
It is a contradiction. According to Rav Chisda.
No, the best way.
According to Rav Chisda.
No.
Hey, Daniel. According to Rav Chisda, it's not a contradiction. Rav Chisda says anything that a guy can do, there is no bracha. Anything a guy can't do, there's no bracha.
So I think if you interpret it a different way, meaning
that's what the Gemara is trying to do.
But not anything can do. It's anything if a goy does it, right? So he has the ability to. The best way is for a Jew to do it. But if you didn't have, let's say, a Jewish doctor, right? So you had the goy do it, then okay, he's allowed to, but there's no bracha. But the best case scenario is you have a Jew do it, and he makes a
Rav
bracha.
Chisda didn't say that. Rav Chisda said if a goy is allowed to do it, no bracha. A goy can't do it, bracha. Rav Chisda said it, and that's why the Gemara challenged it and said, "Uklalahu." Is that really a rule?
I don't know if it doesn't necessarily sound that he's applying it to everything. Meaning,
that's the Gemara's question. Uklalahu. That's Daniel. That's the Gemara's question. Uklalahu. Is this a rule? That's the question, right? Uklalahu. The words literally mean. Remember, that was the interrobang. Is it really a rule? Right. So. The Gemara says, you see, now you're right, conceptually you could say, what's the problem? But that's why the Gemara is saying, but according to Chisda, it sounds like this is a rule. So what does the Gemara then say? Midi hu taima ela l'Rav, Rav mifsal pasil. No, this is all within Rav. Remember, Rav was the person who started this whole discussion. And Rav mifsal pasil. Rav thinks that a goy cannot give a bris milah. The itmar minayla milah b'ovei kochavim shepsula. How do you know that, according to Rav, you aren't allowed to have it? So Daru Bar Papa, Mishmei de Rav, Daru Bar Papa says in the name of Rav. Where do we know Daru Bar Papa from?
Is he related to Papa?
He's the son. Where do we say his name?
Why do we finish our Gemara?
Thank you, at a siyum.
Oh.
Right? When we go through all of Bar Papa's sons, Daru Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Chai Bar Papa.
Why
I
do we
feel
do
like
that?
Dar doesn't sound familiar though.
Why do we do that?
Open to the back of the Gemara, you'll see. He's one of the people.
Why do we do that?
That's a very good question. I don't really know exactly. Something like all his kids were really good examples, and we're davening for. I have to look up something like we're davening that our kids should know Gemara and learn Torah, and all of his kids did. Because as you see, Daru Bar Papa here is a.
Like the same type of thing where on Shabbos you go to bracha Friday.
Yeah, I guess something like that. So Daru Bar Papa says in the name of Rav, V'ata et briti tishmor, you keep my brit, meaning you Jews. And Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Himo Imo, Hamol Imo. And Rabbi Yochanan is a different drasha, which is, it says, Himo Imo, which is, you shall surely give a bris milah, but he reads it as, Hamol Imo. He who has a bris milah can give a bris milah. So now the Gemara says, okay, so at this stage,
a Jewish bris milah or
a halachic bris milah, yes. So the Gemara says, at this stage, the Gemara says, according to Rav Chisda, is it in fact the rule that if a guy can do it, no bracha, if a guy can't do it, bracha?
no?
Yes, according to Rav Chisda, because within Rav thinks, in a Hanami, the only reason there's a bracha on bris milah is because a guy can't do it. And therefore, so far we have a consistent shita, which is, again, bracha, only Jews. No bracha, can be non-Jews. Why? Again, conceptually, because it must be. Right? Either process matters and therefore it's a mitzvah, therefore you need a bracha. Process doesn't matter, not a mitzvah, no bracha. So then the Gemara says, but I have a contradiction. Sukkah misayele. And now the Gemara starts saying, wait a second. Sukkah...
The process matters.
Misayele will support this. Tefillin have a tiyuvta. But tefillin will disprove it. Because hooray, sukkah, dikshera b'ovid kochavim, ditanya, sukkah ovid kochavim, sukkah nashim, sukkah behema, sukkah kutiyim, sukkah mikol makom, kshera. A sukkah made by a guy, a woman, an animal,
Sukkah made by an animal.
or whatever, of a kuti, is a sukkah. Yes, a monkey, I don't know.
They'd like to say an elephant standing. Could it be?
No, being made by. This is, Rosh Hashanah loves telling this story. I've heard it from him so many times. That he once got a shaila from a rabbi of a non-Orthodox shul. No, not the rabbi, I think the gabbai. That the gabbai wanted to upschlag the, what's Yiddish for, whatever, like, disprove. Right, he wanted the rabbi, because the rabbi had gotten the non-Jewish janitor to build the sukkah in the shul on the bima. And the gabbai was like old school conservative, and so he was somewhat knowledgeable or whatever, and he was like, oh, this is not right, and he wanted to prove his rabbi wrong. So he went to the Tershech there and he said, tell my rabbi he's wrong. A guy can't make a sukkah.
Oh, that's not wrong.
And what did Rosh Hashanah say to him? No, he says, Befirish Gemara, a guy can make a sukkah. You have a bigger problem that neither of you realized, which was? You build it inside the house. That's pasal l'gulayam, mama. But you totally got this wrong, right? The fact that it's inside that didn't bother you, that's pasal l'gamri. The fact that a guy built it, it's the kashrut of a hadron. It's sukkah's ganbach. It's an explicit sukkah. It's a sukkah in sukkah. It's a sukkah here, menacho. So he says, sukkah, a goy is allowed to build it, and there is no bracha on building the sukkah, according to the Bavli. The Yerushalmi says there's a bracha on asiyat sukkah. Because, and this the Nesiv argues, that the Yerushalmi holds of a category called Hechsher Mitzvah Ksufa B'Torah. That when the Hechsher Mitzvah is written in the Torah, itself has enough of a status you make a bracha. But the Bavli doesn't think this. So therefore he says, this supports it, because is there a mitzvah, according to the Bavli, is there a mitzvah to build a sukkah?
Yeah.
No. There's a mitzvah to live in the sukkah.
Well, there's specifications how to build it, though.
Yeah, but is there a mitzvah to build a sukkah? No. There's specifications, but there's no lishma, there's none of that.
Apply, though, meaning if there's a mitzvah to sit or sleep in a sukkah,
No, because
then
result
by
oriented.
default you can't just have a sukkah. You need to build it, which is part of the mitzvah.
No, that's not what the Bavli is assuming. At this stage, the Bavli is saying there it's clearly result oriented. You need to have a sukkah because you need to live in it. But if you had a sukkah left over from last year, do you have to build it? No. If a goy builds it,
There was a certain.
if a goy builds it, is that fine?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, again, follow the logic of the Gemara. The Gemara says sukkah supports this contention because there's no bracha and a goy can do it, which tells you what? That the mitzvah is to live in the sukkah, and therefore, is there any mitzvah in building it? No, and therefore there's no bracha, and therefore a goy can build it, and there's no bracha. That's what you get.
Granted, they say you can't leave the sukkah still. You should at least shake the stock.
That's a different sukkah. That's sukkah yeshana.
Just clarify
That's sukkah yeshana. I don't want to get into sukkah yeshana right now, right? But that's sukkah yeshana. So he says, all of these are ksheira v'vajei mizukeches kelchaso v'Yisrael ein tzarich levarech, and there's no bracha. D'tanya ha'osa sukkah la'atzmo omer baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'yigiyanu lozman hazeh. The only bracha that you would make on building a sukkah is potentially shehecheyanu, which our minhag is to have in mind when we say shehecheyanu on sukkahs, to have it in mind. Okay, fine. When you come to actually sit in it, even though the simple pshat in the Gemara is that you should make a shechayanu on building it. Okay. But leishev ba, Amar ba leishev ba, when you come to sit in it, you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvah b'tzivanu, leishev ba sukkah, v'ilu la'asot sukkah lo mevarech. So does sukkah support Rav Chisda's linkage of bracha and requiring a Jew, meaning believing that the process itself is important? Yes.
Yeah.
But the Gemara says, but tefillin, tiyuvte, tefillin, disproves it. Why? Hare tefillin psulot b'ovdei kolchavim. Can a non-Jew make tefillin? Psulot, the last line.
Right.
No. Ditani, Rav Chinna birei dirava, mi pashranaya, right, which is someplace. Sefer Torah tefillin and mezuzot shektavan tzduki kuti ovei kochavim evet isha katan mumar psulen. Any of these people write tefillin is pasol. Shneimar ukshartem uchtavtem, because there's a special rule by tefillin, which we'll have to see whether it's true by tzitzis. Right, by tefillin we know the answer. Can a woman be a soferet stam for tefillin? No. Because kol sheyeshno b'kshira yeshno b'ktiva, kol she'eno b'kshira eino b'ktiva. Only someone who is allowed, who has to put on tefillin, is allowed to write tefillin. Uvi Yisrael, so
Isn't there an argument that women can't have tefillin? Like
they definitely don't have to.
They don't have to, but they can, like in private.
So the Gemara, so there's different versions between Bavli and Yerushalmi of whether a woman who comes to wear tefillin mochen biyadan or ein mochen biyadan. Do you stop them from doing it, or you don't stop them from doing it?
I was reading Rabbi Brody's book.
Correct.
And he says that in private they can.
So that's machlokas. It's machlokas. Right, comes down. These sugyas and why shouldn't they be wearing it? Is it beged ish? Is it yuhara?
Right. Because it is in private. There's no.
Etc. Yes, exactly. The big sugya, don't want to get into it. Maybe the tzitzis one we will, but not the tefillin. So, can a guy make tefillin? No. Do you make a bracha on making tefillin?
I don't know.
Also no. V'Yisrael ain't tzarich levarech. The shalach Rebchia berei Rav Huna mishmei Rav Yochanan al tefillin shel yad. When you put on your tefillin shel yad, what do you say? Omer baruch asher kedishanu v'tzivanu lahaniach tefillin al tefillin shel rosh. Omer baruch asher kedishanu v'tzivanu al mitzvah tefillin. This is what Ashkenazim do. That we say two brachot.
We say two also if it's you talk between the two.
Correct. That's how Sephardim read the sugya, which is only if you have a hefsek between shel yad, right? The Sephardi way of reading this is if you are mafsik between it, then you say two separate brachot. But if you aren't mafsik, you say one bracha. The Ashkenazi minhag is to say two brachot always.
And then say Rav Shem.
And say Baruch Shem as a suffix, because we're not sure you're supposed to make that bracha. Exactly. V'ilu la'asot tefillin lo mivarech. But to make tefillin, you don't make a bracha. So therefore, does this disprove the linkage between bracha and whether a guy can make it?
I don't know. It doesn't necessarily disprove it. I don't know.
The guy can't make it. You don't make a bracha. Reb Chisda said anything a guy can't make a bracha.
I think there's a different way to read it. I think
Stop. Wait. I'll hear you in a second. At this stage in the Gemara, does the Gemara assume that this disproves it?
On paper, yes.
Not in paper. At this stage in the Gemara, does the Gemara assume it disproves it?
On paper, yes.
No. At this stage in the Gemara. What?
With tefillin.
Yes. Because the Gemara says a guy can't make it and you don't make a bracha.
Right.
So, good. So you're intuiting the answer. The Gemara is going to say, you're right, the rule is not what you said it was. But at this stage in the Gemara is assuming that Rav Chisda's rule is essentially what? Anything a guy can make, you don't make a bracha. Anything a guy can't make, you don't make a bracha. You do make a bracha. And why? What's the conceptual logic of it?
Because there's a mitzvah on the...
If there's a mitzvah to create, so then there's a bracha, and therefore a guy can't do it. And if there's no mitzvah to create, so then a guy can do it because there's no standards. The Gemara's answer is going to be, the rule is not that. What's the rule?
That something that so I think something that a guy can create, there is no bracha on it because there is no mitzvah on the Maisa, clearly. But you can have a mitzvah on the Maisa, right? So a guy can't do it, but that doesn't mean that it requires a bracha. Like in this case.
Good. So what the Gemara's answer is going to be, is Ella. This is where we switch directions. Right? Until now, the Gemara was assuming anything a guy is allowed to make that proves it's not a mitzvah, and anything a guy can't make that proves that the creation is itself a mitzvah. Those are the only two categories. But then the Gemara says, but tefillin disproves it because you need a Jew to create it, and yet he doesn't make a bracha, which tells you what? Before we look at the Gemara's answer, it tells you that what? Bracha is about what?
Bracha is...
Right? When do you make a bracha, Daniel? Only if it's a
when you're doing it.
Mitzvah. But can you... What determines whether a goy can make it or not?
Is there a specification?
Whether the process is halachically significant. And you could theoretically have something where the process is significant, but it's not a mitzvah.
But by tzitzis...
Oh, so now the Gemara says by tefillin. Well, we haven't got right. This is all getting back to tzitzis. Remember, this is one very long Gemara, which gets back to tzitzis, but we haven't gone there yet. So the Gemara says, so by tefillin, what's the halacha? Elalav hainu taima. This is the reason. Kol mitzvah dasiyata gmar mitzvah kigon milah avagav deksheva v'chavim v'Yisrael tzarech livarech. We call mitzvah that siyata lav gemar mitzvah kagon tefillin avagav de psulo v'vekacham v'Yisrael in tzarech levarech. Listen to this phrase. Right, this is a very lamdish phrase. If by time you have finished the act, you have performed the mitzvah, then you have a bracha. Even if a guy doesn't. So he says, bris milah. How do you conceptualize it? Why is it that by bris milah a guy might be allowed to do it, but if a Jew does it, you make a bracha?
It's on.
Because the mitzvah is the result. It's result-oriented. So if a Jew does it, does he make a bracha? Obviously, because he's brought about a mitzvah. But why can a guy do it even though there's a bracha?
It's about the result.
Because it's about the result. And therefore...
It's on the result, so he could do it, but he can't... There's no bracha because...
No, but if a Jew would do it, there would be a bracha. Meaning, it's a mitzvah, but a goy can still do it. Meaning, now the Gemara breaks it and says, this is wrong. Right? You can have things which are clearly mitzvot, but a goy can do. And those are called result-oriented mitzvahs, what the Gemara calls she'asiyat. Right? The Gemara is the raise the bracha. And what could you have? You could have something where the result is important, the process is important, but there's no bracha, and a guy can't make it. Why? Because the process is important, but not because it's a mitzvah. Like tefillin, meaning the Gemara ends up saying there are two standards here. Goyim can't do that which The process and not the result is important. Right? Whether or not a goy can do it is about, is this process halachically significant? Bracha is about, is this process a mitzvah or not? So you could cut it in both ways.
So there's three stages really, right?
But,
there's process, there's result, and then there's after that even the act of doing it.
Good. So now the Gemara therefore says, Mila, the result, is it a mitzvah? 100%.
Yes.
Do you need a bracha therefore?
Yes.
Yes. Can a goy do it?
Yes.
Possibly because, machlokas, but possibly because if it's result oriented, so maybe
It's not on
a
the
goy can
path.
do it even though it's clearly a mitzvah.
Right.
But you could also have the opposite, where is making tefillin a mitzvah?
Yes.
Making tefillin a mitzvah?
No.
No. But is the process significant halachically?
Yes.
Yes. So do you make a bracha on making tzitzit, tefillin? No. Can a goy make it? Also no. Because these are not related questions. And here it fails both.
Why can't? No. Well.
Meaning, because you could have things which
that
you could,
contradicts Mila.
no, because once
The
we
process-
break it,
the process of Mila is significant too.
no, that's what we're saying. It's not. The result of having a bris milah is important.
So you can cut it any way you want.
That's what the Gemara is saying.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Right? That's exactly what the Gemara is saying. Is that it sounds like it's saying. Again, we have to get more thoroughly into milah. But at least the simplest shot here is the Gemara is saying, look, asiyata, Gemara asiyata mitzvah, meaning having a milah, that's the mitzvah. And therefore, if a Jew is doing it, as he's giving the bris milah, is he performing a mitzvah? Yes, he's bringing about the desired result. But if a goy does it, is it possible that it's mutter? Yes. Now remember, it's a machlokas if a non-Jew can do it. What seems to be the machlokas about whether a non-Jew can do it? Whether it's only result-oriented or not. Right? Meaning, now which way do we paskin, by the way?
In terms of what?
Whether a guy can give a milah or not. So we say in our moi, he shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? We have Jews do it. Right? Kuti v'lo our moi.
Oh, right, because we said no. We said their conversion wasn't good.
Well,
so then
remember, these are my focus in the Gemara and what's going on.
I thought we said
Actually, I have to look up whether Paskin Jew. I'll look it up. But the Gemara says it's possible that bris milah yabel bracha and you won't have, but you won't allow a guy to do it because giving a bris milah is clearly the mitzvah,
If you think
but
about
it's
it,
result oriented.
it's so
But
crazy.
tefillin, you can have the opposite, which is meaning what's the Gemara really saying? Bracha is about, is this a mitzvah? Whether a goy can do it is it process oriented or result oriented? And the Gemara is saying by tefillin, is the process necessary? Yes. How do I know? Because I need lishma and things like that. Meaning the process of creating tefillin is itself halachically significant.
That's what you can't.
And therefore a goy can't do it. But is the process of tefillin a mitzvah process? No, wearing it is the mitzvah, and therefore, by tefillin, a goy can't make it, but there's no mitzvah. By milah, it's result-oriented according to the sheets of the Gemara, but when you do it, it's clearly a mitzvah, because the mitzvah is immediate. Right? I've brought about the result, so I'd say a mitzvah.
It's pretty crazy to say that by Mila, because Mila is literally arguing with God, and then here you can have a...
Correct, and it's a machlokas in the Gemara itself.
So, like, the idea of it, the reason, like, behind the mitzvah is just so...
It's radical. In a Chanami, it's radical. So now the Gemara says, right, so now all of this was a background, right? Now all of this was a background, and now the Gemara says, how did this play into the question of whether you say the bracha of Lasot Tzitzit? So now tell me, what's the machlokes?
If the process is halachically significant, which it is, but is that a mitzvah, or is the mitzvah just the...
So is what he says. Good. So he's...
Not the end result, but putting it on.
Oh, exactly. The Gemara says, wait a second. Bracha, what's the rule by bracha? Is this creating this thing in front of us, right? Creating the milah, is that a mitzvah? It's a mitzvah. It may be result oriented, but the mitzvah is having the milah. It's not delayed, as opposed to tefillin, where creating the tefillin is important, but it's not the mitzvah. So he says, okay, so he's making tzitzit a mitzvah. So he says, well...
Tefillin and tzitzit should be the exact same thing.
Tefillin is clearly Chovat Gavra. Clearly Chovat Gavra. There's no mitzvah to have tefillin, mitzvah to wear tefillin. And that's why the Gemara says you clearly don't make a bracha on making tefillin. But yes, the process is important. But a goy doesn't make it. But now the Gemara says, what's the real question of tzitzis? Of whether you make a bracha on asiyas tzitzis? What's the real question? What is it? Is it like tefillin where what?
Or it's just to wear it.
The pshat of the puzzle.
One second. Just spell this out, then ask your question. Now the Gemara's question, now it comes into sharper relief. Why, if it's like tefillin, and therefore you don't make a bracha on making it, why is that? Because you think the mitzvah is what?
To wear it.
To wear it, and therefore making tzitzis is no different than making tefillin. I've created a chetzis shel mitzvah.
Non-Jew can't make it, but there's no bracha.
But there's no bracha. We'll leave aside the Jew, non-Jew, but the point is there's no bracha on making it because this is not the Gemara Siyah, because the mitzvah, because the mitzvah is wearing. And why? What would you need to say in order to say you make a bracha on making tzitzis?
That it's on the process.
No, that it's Gemara Siyah, that the process of the mitzvah is finished as soon as I've made the tzitzis.
Right.
And therefore the Gemara says...
both. That is on the end result.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And that's what we're going to see. But before we get to the mixed position, I wanted to see the simple pshat in the Gemara. And now the Gemara says, Ubeha kamiflagi. Right? This is what they're arguing about. What's they're arguing about? Mar savar chovat tallit Mar savar chovat gavra. The machlokes is it a Chovat Gavra or Chovat Tallit? If you think that it's a Chovat Gavra, simple pshat means that the mitzvah of tzitzis is what? To wear tzitzis, then it's like tefillin. Where when I make the tzitzis, is that the end of anything? No, I've created a chetzis shel mitzvah, but I haven't done a mitzvah. So then do you make a bracha of lasot tzitzit? No. But if you think the mitzvah is chovat talis, which means that I start to fulfill the mitzvah when? As soon as I have tzitzis on the beged, right? That's the simplest pshat here.
Is that one corner or all four?
All four. Meaning all four corners. That as soon as I put tzitzis on the beged.
So there's no significance.
That was machlokes lamed zayin. Right. Remember? Yeah. So, but the way we paskin, all four. So then, if the mitzvah is not to wear tzitzit, but any four-cornered garment I have has to have tzitzit on it, whether I'm wearing it or not. So then, is the act of putting tzitzis on the beg at the end of a process? Yes. Is it the end of a mitzvah?
No.
Yes. According to Chovat Tallit. And therefore, do you make a bracha? Yes. And that's the machlokes in the Gemara. Now, what about a goy? Can a goy make it? So, Amar Lev Mordechai. L'Ravashi atun achi matnin la ne'achi matnin la. This is how you learn it. This is how we learn it. I'm reviewing the Marami. Now let's do shikshera shneimar daber al bnei Yisrael. Sulam tzitzit yasu lahem acherim. But can goy make it? So, according to this position, yes. Meaning it's exactly like Mila, where the process is not important, but the result is a mitzvah. Chovat, if you hold Chovat Tallit. So this whole long discussion got to the following machlokes, where the Gemara says, what is the machlokes about whether you say the bracha of la'asot tzitzit or not? Is putting the tzitzit on the beged the end of the mitzvah? If you think that wearing tzitzit is the mitzvah, so then, is this the end of the mitzvah process? No. If you think that the mitzvah is to have tzitzit on your begadim wherever they may be, is this the end? 100%. Then there's the secondary question: is can a goy make it? And the answer is machlokes. But remember, we said that you can have a machlokes whether a goy can make it, right? Regardless of whether you think it's a mitzvah, right? Because tefillin, making the tefillin is not a mitzvah, but you can't have a goy do it. Mila is a mitzvah, but you can't have a goy do it, because there the question is process versus the result. And here you have a machlokes, that the beginning of the Gemara says, are you allowed to have a goy tie tzitzis? No. And the second day in the Gemara is, can you have a goy tie tzitzis? Yes. What's their machlokes? Is the process significant? Or is it just that you need to have tzitzis by the end? But Chovat Gavra, Chovat Mana.
If you look at the pasuk itself,
It sounds very much like the process is important.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because it talks nothing about wearing it. It just talks about how to make it. You attach it, you put on tchela, it's all about the
Very good. And then the Gemara in the Psukim in Dvarim, we talked about completely about beged. Gidilim tasalach barba kanfas chasaba. Right? You should have tzitzit on your beged. So here's the Gemara's machlokes. Now you saw this is a large piece of Gemara. We've just read through it, right? Just to get the general conceptual contours of the Gemara. But the Gemara here says that the nafkamina between Chovas Tallit and Chovas Gavra is.
Oh, does the process matter and the end result?
What's the nafkamina? Lamaisa. What's the nafkamina? Remember, what was the nafkamina that the Gemara was? This whole Gemara was about one nafkamina, which is.
If it's a mitzvah.
Come on, bracha.
Right.
Bracha lasot tzitzit. That's the nafkamina, right? For the Gemara. What is the other nafkamina? And this is the Gemara Mem Aleph. What the Gemara is going to call, maybe we'll do this tomorrow. Do you want to do this tomorrow? But let me just lay it out. What's the Gemara's second nafkamina? What's called klei kufsa, meaning tefillin that you just have, tzitzis that you just have sitting in your drawer, a beged in your drawer. Do you have to put tzitzis on it even if you're not going to wear it, or if you're not wearing it?
You eventually will. No.
Not necessarily.
Well, it's a beged.
Well, maybe,
Otherwise,
depending on how much you integrate it.
Meaning.
I outgrew it.
Lama said we're not just retying tzitzit onto our bed or onto our begeds.
Huh?
You're asking in comments that you have only one.
You have a four-cornered beged sitting in your drawer. Do you have to have tzitzit on that, whether or not you're going to wear it?
Mm-hmm.
Chovat Gavra? No. Chovas Tallit?
Yes.
Presumably yes. And now you'll tell me, oh, well, obviously we paskin.
No.
No, and that is not true. And that's why I gave you all these Rishonim. They don't expect you to read all of them, but many, many, many Rishonim paskin Chovas Tallit. Chovas Tallit. Many, many Rishonim. This is not at all an open and shut case where we paskin like one or the other.
Well, okay, for Yosef. Every single blanket in your house has to have tzitzis?
Potentially. Depending on the machlokes we saw last week.
In theory, you could sleep with it.
Bidyuk. According to.
It's included.
That's tough.
Meaning according to Rebbe Eliyahu.
Yeah.
According to Rebbe Eliyahu, yes. Right? Rebbe Eliyahu quoted in the Hagaz Maimon. Yeah, that would mean that every single blanket in your house, whether you're going to wear it or not going to wear it, but even those blankets that you never have on you during the day, presumably would need tzitzis, right? They would need tzitzis, chanami. It wouldn't matter, not just your blanket, any blanket you have. Again, we saw other defenses of that. The Mordechai's position, which is that a blanket is not worn; it's just put on top of you. And that would be a different defense. But theoretically, yes, according to Rebbe Eliyahu, that would be the case.
I have a
Yeah.
Okay, right. We did earlier on Mem Aleph, right? That something with buttons, if they're sewed with buttons, right? Or they're held together with buttons. That doesn't need tzitzis, right?
Wait, do we do buttons? I don't think we've done buttons.
Pins, I think. Yeah, where was it?
So I think we have to do Mem Aleph tomorrow.
Here, Tanarban Talis Kenfua Chayav B'tzitzis, Rabbi Shimon Pater, V'Shevayin She'im Kefala V'Tifera, right? Shechayavet.
If you sew it up.
Right. Tifer Pshita, right? It's obvious. Lo, Tzricha do not kata besichi. If it's attached with pins.
Good. So let's do this Gemara tomorrow because, right? Meaning this is a whole nother Gemara, and I feel like we're gonna be rushed.
Separate, but I'm just curious.
Oh, okay.
Does that count as it being together or not?
So that's what it is. So button, right? Meaning there it's more
Is it considered one beged? Like sewed together, not?
Yeah. So in general, I mean, we're going to get to it. It's a complicated sugya. There's a lot of different factors there also. But let's do So we did one Gemara of Chovat Gavra, Chovat Mana, where the Gemara said the nafkamina is bracha. What we'll do tomorrow is do the second Gemara on Mem Aleph and Mem Aleph. Chronologically, it's first, but and then we'll see. Now, again, I don't expect you to read everything here. These Rishonim get into the question of psak. I would see the Gemara in Brachot, which is number 10, right? Which is the Gemara where it says, what bracha do we actually make? And this is where some of the Rishonim draw their conclusion from. And if you want to see a hybrid position, so the Rav is a nice hybrid position. I gave you that. You can look at, since you like reading the Rav's book on it, on page Reish Dalet, Reish Zion. But we'll pick this up tomorrow. This will probably take us 3 days. I would say the sugya, it means a broad sugya, as you see. Like this Gemara, that was a long piece of Gemara, and analyzing it carefully was good.